Hello? Hauntline Studios. My name is Tyler Hammond. I'm 32 years old and I'm calling from Spokane, Washington. I work nights as a delivery driver for a medical supply company, so most of my routine is pretty quiet. I sleep during the day, work in the evening, and usually get home around midnight. I'm calling because something strange has been happening with the house next door to mine. And the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. I moved into this neighborhood about 8 months ago. It's one of those quiet suburban areas where most of the houses look exactly the same. Small yards, two-car garages, and the kind of silence you only get after midnight when everyone else is asleep. When I first moved in, I noticed right away that the house next door looked empty. The lawn wasn't overgrown, but it wasn't really maintained either. The curtains were always drawn, and I never saw anyone come or go. At first, I assumed the owners were just away for a while, maybe traveling, maybe renting the place out later. But after living there for a few weeks, something about the house started to bother me. Because every single night when I came home from work, someone was standing in the window. The window was on the second floor, facing my driveway, and behind the curtain, you could see the shape of a person standing there. Not moving, just standing still, like they were looking down at the street. The first time I noticed it, I didn't think much about it. People look out their windows all the time. But what struck me as odd was how still the figure was. Whoever it was didn't move, didn't shift, didn't step away from the window. They just stood there, watching. The curtain was thin enough that you could see the silhouette clearly, but not detailed enough to make out a face. Just the outline of someone standing behind the fabric. At first, I figured it was probably the homeowner, maybe someone who worked nights like I did. But as the weeks went on, I started noticing something strange. I never saw that person during the day, ever, not once. No car in the driveway, no lights inside, no sound. And the strangest part was that the house looked completely dark every night. No lamps, no porch light, nothing. Except that one window, where the silhouette stood behind the curtain, every single night. At first, I tried to ignore it. But when you come home at midnight every day and see the same thing over and over, it starts to get under your skin. One night, I decided to wave. I know that probably sounds stupid, but I figured maybe the neighbor had seen me pulling in every night and was just watching out of curiosity. So I stepped out of my truck, looked up at the window, and raised my hand. The silhouette didn't move, not even a little. It just stayed there, perfectly still. That's when I started getting this weird feeling in my stomach. Because when someone sees you wave, they usually react somehow, even if it's just turning away. But this figure didn't do anything. It just kept standing there, watching. After that night, I started paying closer attention. And the more I watched that window, the stranger it became. The silhouette never changed, never shifted position, never leaned forward, never stepped away. It looked exactly the same every single night. Like it wasn't even moving at all. Almost like a cutout. But that didn't make sense either, because sometimes the curtain moved slightly, like someone was actually standing behind it. The first time things got really strange happened about 3 weeks ago. When I pulled into my driveway, I automatically glanced at the window next door. The silhouette was there again, standing in the exact same spot. But this time, something felt different. I sat in my truck for a moment looking at it, and that's when I realized what was wrong. The curtain was closed, but the light behind it was completely dark. There was no glow, no lamp, nothing. And yet I could still clearly see the outline of a person standing behind it. That's when the uneasiness started turning into something else, something colder. Because if there was no light behind the curtain, then how could I see the silhouette? I remember just sitting there staring at the window for a good minute, trying to figure out what I was actually looking at. Finally, I shook it off and went inside. I told myself it was just some weird lighting effect, streetlights, shadows, something like that. But that night I had trouble sleeping, and the next morning I decided to ask someone about the house. The guy who lives across the street from me has been there for years. His name is Mark, and he's the kind of neighbor who knows everything about the area. So while he was out walking his dog, I asked him a simple question. "Hey, do you know who lives in the house next door?" The moment I said that, his expression changed. He looked at the house, then he looked back at me, and he said something that made my stomach drop. "No one lives there." I told him about the silhouette in the window. Mark stared at me for a long moment before answering. Then he said something I still can't stop thinking about. That house has been abandoned for 12 years. Apparently, the family who lived there moved out after something terrible happened. No one bought the place after that. It just sat empty. According to Mark, the city had even talked about tearing it down at one point. I laughed nervously and told him he must be mistaken, because I see someone standing in that window almost every night. Mark didn't laugh. He just shook his head slowly and said, "You're the third person on this street who's told me that." That night when I got home from work, I didn't even want to look at the house. But of course, I did, because curiosity always wins. And sure enough, the silhouette was there again, standing behind the curtain, perfectly still, watching my driveway, watching my house, watching me. But this time, I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Because the curtain wasn't covering the entire window, there was a small gap near the edge, and through that gap, I could see part of the room behind it. The room was completely empty. No furniture, no lights, no one standing inside. Just an empty room. And yet, the silhouette was still there, standing behind the curtain, watching. And right before I turned away, the curtain moved, just slightly, like someone had stepped closer to the glass. I tried to convince myself there had to be a simple explanation. A trick of the light, a shadow from the trees, maybe even my own imagination after hearing what the neighbor told me. But the truth is, things didn't stop. They got worse. The night after I talked to Mark, I came home from work around midnight like usual. And just like every other night, the first thing I did was glance at the window next door. The silhouette was there, standing behind the curtain, perfectly still. Except this time, I noticed something different. The shape looked closer to the glass than before. Before, it had always looked like the figure was standing deeper inside the room. But that night, it looked like whoever it was had stepped right up to the window, like they were leaning toward the street, watching me. I felt this cold knot form in my stomach, but I still told myself the same thing. It's nothing, just a shadow. So I went inside. But about an hour later, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I replayed what Mark said in my head, the more uneasy I felt. Because if the house really had been abandoned for 12 years, then who had been standing in that window every night? Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. Around 1 a.m., I stepped outside onto my porch. The street was completely quiet. No cars, no people, just the hum of distant traffic somewhere far off in the city, and the house next door, dark, silent, except for that window. The curtain was still closed, and the silhouette was still there, standing exactly the same way. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I walked closer to the property line. Not all the way to their yard, just close enough to get a better look. The closer I got, the clearer the silhouette became, and the more it started to look like a real person. Tall, thin, arms hanging straight down, head tilted slightly forward. But the thing that made my skin crawl was how perfectly still it was. A real person would shift their weight eventually, move their head, do something. This figure didn't. It looked like it had been frozen in place, like a mannequin. But as I stood there staring up at that window, something changed. The curtain moved, just slightly, like someone had brushed against it. My heart immediately started pounding, because I knew the wind wasn't blowing, the trees weren't moving, nothing else around me was shifting, just that curtain. Then slowly, very slowly, the silhouette raised one arm. I froze. The shape lifted its hand and pressed it against the cloth, and suddenly I could see the outline of fingers through the fabric. 5 long shapes pushing against the cloth. That's when the fear really hit me, because the arm had moved too smoothly, too slowly, like whatever was behind the curtain wasn't used to moving at all. I took a step backward, then another, and just as I started heading back toward my house, the arm dropped again, returning to that same still position, like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. Every little noise in my house kept waking me up. The creaking pipes, the wind brushing against the siding, even my refrigerator humming in the kitchen. But about 3 a.m., something happened that I still can't explain. I woke up suddenly, not because of a sound, but because I felt like someone was watching me. You know that feeling when you can just sense another person in the room? That's exactly what it felt like. I slowly opened my eyes. My bedroom window faces the side yard, and from my bed you can see straight toward the abandoned house next door. At first, everything looked normal. The street light outside was casting that dull orange glow over the yard. But then, I noticed something. The curtain in the window next door was open. Just a little, for the first time since I moved in. And through the gap, I could see inside the room. The room was empty, completely empty. Bare walls, no furniture, nothing. But the silhouette was still there, standing in front of the window. Except now, I could see something that made my chest tighten. Because the silhouette wasn't inside the room. It was pressed directly against the glass, like someone standing outside the window, looking in, looking out toward my house, toward my bedroom. I sat up slowly, my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. And that's when I realized something even worse. The silhouette wasn't looking at the street anymore. It was facing directly toward my window, toward me, like it knew I was awake. I stared at it for what felt like forever, neither of us moving, neither of us looking away. Then suddenly, the silhouette disappeared, just vanished from the window. I jumped out of bed and rushed to the glass, but when I looked toward the abandoned house, the window was completely empty. The curtain had fallen closed again, and the room behind it was dark. The next morning, I told Mark what happened. He didn't say much, just listened. Then he told me something I hadn't heard before. Apparently, the family who used to live in that house had a son,
a teenage boy. One night, 12 years ago, he disappeared. No one ever found him. Some people said he ran away. Others said something happened in that house, something the parents never talked about. But after the boy vanished, neighbors started seeing things, shapes in the windows, movement in the empty rooms, people standing behind the curtains, watching the street, watching the houses, watching the neighbors. Mark said the sightings eventually stopped, or at least people stopped talking about them, until I moved in. That night, when I got home from work, I didn't want to look at the house, but I knew I would. And sure enough, the silhouette was there again, standing behind the curtain, just like always. Except this time, there was something different. Because next to the silhouette, there was another shape, smaller, standing beside it, watching my driveway, watching my house, watching me. And slowly, very slowly, the curtain started opening wider, like someone inside was letting me see what was standing there. And I swear to you, one of those shapes was smiling.
If you love the slow burn of fear, the stories that creep under your skin, subscribe now. Don't fight the darkness. Let it follow you.